ready? It's should. Welcome, folks, to the October 15, 2019 Board of Selectmen meeting, or Select Persons meeting. And what we could do is start off initially with the roll call.
Diane Kennedy here.
Paul Stewart here.
Kevin McCarthy here.
Carrie Thompson here.
Okay. And those who wish to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance are welcome to do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll begin with public comments. If there's anybody here from the public who would like to discuss any topics that are not on the agenda,
I was.
if you please come up, you can sit down and identify yourself. You're most welcome.
Sure. I'm Diana Cornett, and here as not only a citizen of Cohasset, but a member of First Parish. And I sent everybody a letter at the instruction of our chair, which expresses our church and membership's concerns with proposed plan for the new parking, and requesting some dialogue and some input and some larger forums so that everybody can understand what the implications of this are going to be.
Okay, Diane, thank you for doing that. We can't usually deliberate on it, but maybe Chris can make a comment.
So no, I appreciate Diana and others. We've had some very, very productive meetings. We're still working out some details, but I think we've gotten some great input, and I think we've been able to come up with some very creative solutions, which I think will be safer all the way around. Different than they are today, where there's no legal spaces anywhere. People just kind of park where they want. That said, we're tentatively looking either at the next Selectmen's meeting or the one after that, depending on everyone's schedule. And in the interim, we're going to try to continue to talk and well, there's one particular option which I won't discuss tonight that we have to vet through a few other groups just to make sure we're good. But again, all the input has been back and forth. It's been, okay, what works, what do you need, and I do think we've had some really good conversations, but maybe next Selectmen's meeting.
So I think then what we're saying is that, I don't want to go too far because we can't in open comment, but I think we can. It looks like what we may do is put this on the agenda for the next meeting or the meeting after, and put in the time, and we'll also put on there for public comment, and we'll allow for public comment on it too, and have the dialogue and address your concern that way. And don't want to go too far either, but I do know that there is addressments to some of the, I've seen some postings like on Facebook that aren't exactly accurate. I think Chris tried to put out some more accurate. So that's why it is a good idea we have a public forum and discuss it, because I don't think you'll be totally as concerned or displeased after. But this needs to be discussed, and we need to get input. We need to hear what the concerns are. So we're, I think, glad to do that as a board. Okay, so we will do that. Diane, thank you.
Thank you.
You sat here in this seat, so you know that we're doing the right thing by having a meeting on this. So.
And we sent the letter to the members of the board simply because nobody had been able to come to this meeting that Chris called it October 3rd, I think it was, Thursday, a couple of weeks ago.
Well, you were there, Nancy.
Yeah, I was there, yeah, but I mean, no selectmen were able to be there. And so we just wanted you to know some of our concerns.
Well, then you'll be on our agenda, and we'll be listening to.
Thank you. We'll keep an eye on the agenda too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we have the automatic notice too. You can go online.
Yes,
Email to you.
yes, we'll do that. Okay.
And Diane, very good to see you again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana.
Okay. Any other public comment? Items that are not on the agenda. Okay. That being said, we'll come to the next portion of our meeting, and so tonight we're pleased to welcome back to active duty Lieutenant Greg Lennon, Officer Aaron Bates, and Officer Alex Stotnick. So I want you to stop right there. And as you may all remember, these three saved a woman's life last December. We welcome them back to active service and thank them for their bravery and courage. Governor Baker will be awarding them the Medal of Valor this Friday at the State House. Chief Quigley has awarded them the Life-Saving Medal with Valor. We also want to thank them for how they handled a very dangerous situation and for saving a victim's life. So, thank you, gentlemen. I'm gonna give At this point here, I'd like to invite Chief Quigley if he'd like to say a few words.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Step right up, guys.
Don't be afraid.
They don't bite, I swear. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We're really, really happy that they're back to work, and it's been a long time coming. And I'm going to, as you said, they're going to be awarded a Medal of Valor from the governor this Friday, and they're going to break news here, I think, as well. On December 3rd, they're going to be flown to Washington, D.C. They're going to be awarded a Medal of Valor by the Attorney General.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So on December.
That makes us proud.
Yeah.
Congratulations. It makes us proud what you've done for our community.
And,
Thank you.
in talking to these guys, you know, they're very, you know, they're humbled by all this, and they're very, you know, they're proud to serve the people of Cohasset. But this invite back to work from you guys really means a lot, and I can, you know, vouch that, you know, I've had private conversations with each of them, and you know, this is really meaningful to them and me and the departments.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, and if I would like to invite any of the members of the Board of Selectmen who would like to say anything at this time, or make any comments at all, whatever they'd like to, or Chris?
I think it's all been
Diane?
said, but I'm emotional because, you know, I've known at least two of you for a very long time, and I can read the emotion in the chief's voice too. Thank you. So, that's all.
Okay, so, yes.
This is a real honor for our town. Thank you so much for everything you do, for what all of you do as a department, and I'm really excited because I'll be able to join you on Friday to see you receive this honor, so looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Good.
I'd just like to thank all of you. It was a very tough situation, and you handled it unbelievably well, and honored to have you serve the town. Thank you.
And thank you. And just one more thing,
Yeah,
Mr.
sure.
Chairman, if I could, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, you know, Chris's leadership and Miriam's help through this whole endeavor, and also the dispatchers at the Shrek. You know, they played a huge part in this incident, and they should be commended too. You know, I did write a letter before, but they're a big part of this.
Good.
Great.
In case he wants to make sure he's in every photo.
He's our levity.
So, it's been we're very, very grateful to have you guys back, and look forward to a lot of years of service, and hopefully not having to go through that again, but just on your day-to-day stuff, having to do good old-fashioned routine police work every day. But thank you all again very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and before you leave, gentlemen, I'm gonna shake your hands myself, and I'm gonna invite the rest of the board to shake your hand as well. They appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I know.
Thank you so much. Yes, it'll be a good ceremony. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, officer.
Thank you.
Thank you, chief, for all of you. Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Gentlemen, thank you again, thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.
That was totally
Okay,
Well, that was awesome.
Yeah,
yeah, that was,
amazing.
nice. It's kind of it goes downhill considerably.
Oh, no, it doesn't. Actually, it's going right up.
Right,
Some good news.
okay, so, I'm at the meeting. Anyway, the licenses and permits is our next item, and we have three of them. First one being the South Shore Community Center Nursery School Halloween Fair. First, do we, like, a representative for that?
We do.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good stuff. Hi, I'm Ann Madden, I'm the director of the Social Community Center Nursery School, and I respectfully ask that we use the Common on Sunday for our annual Halloween fair. The Halloween fair has gone on for, I think, close to 35 years now, and it is a fundraiser for our scholarship and also pays for other activities at the nursery school. It's an old-fashioned fair. We have games, simple games. It's for 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. It's just really fun. And with games and little a petting zoo and bubbles and drumming. And that's what we do on the fair.
Good.
Another
Sounds
bobbing
fun.
for apples?
No bobbing for apples, no.
Bobbing for donuts.
Yes, we used to do that. We
Yeah,
did.
that's-
For setting that up
That's
with
right.
you
Yes,
many
that's right.
moons ago.
Yes, yes.
And Chris, did you have anything to add on that?
No, we're all good.
Okay,
The only thing to add is that she did request that we waive the fee for common usage as a
Okay.
nonprofit.
okay. So, any questions? That sounds, you're doing good to me. Is there any questions? Sir, does anybody wanna make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the application for South Shore Community Center, South Shore Nursery School for the annual Halloween Fair, October 20, 2019, 2 to 4 p.m. Town Commons.
Second.
Okay, first and second, and are there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That's unanimous, Tracy? Good, look
Thank
forward to
Make
it.
a
Thank you
motion
very much.
to waive the application fee.
And we do this as a separate motion.
Okay.
You also.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That's unanimous, Tracy. Okay, the next item is the Cohasset Cultural Committee. Kelly Basile, is she here or something?
No, you jumped ahead.
Jump ahead, Rick.
Cohasset Rec, thanks for giving
Sorry.
5K road race.
Cohasset Recreation, thanks for giving 5K road race 11/28/19.
We have
Okay, do we have a
Commissioner
representative?
Tim Bernica here.
Yes,
Great.
hi there. Tim Bernica, Commissioner of, one of the Recreation Commissioners. Looking for approval for the 11th annual Thanks for Giving Road Race on Thanksgiving morning. It takes place, starting line is out front here of Town Hall, continues to Jerusalem, makes a right onto, Nichols. I'm doing the road race backwards. Makes a right onto Nichols, turns onto Atlantic, and then makes a right onto Beach Street, and makes another left back on Highland Ave. 3.1 mile road race, begins at 7:30 in the morning. Last year, the high temperature for the day was 22 degrees, so we had a bit of a smaller turnout than we anticipated, so we were kind of wrapped up maybe a little early, but the whole thing is wrapped up and people are off to the Legion or the football game for, plenty of time, 9:30 in the morning, probably at the latest for the people walking. And that's it. And the proceeds go, it's a split 50-50 with the Recreation Department and the Clark Chatterton Memorial Fund. The Recreation Department uses it for items that come up or to improve and support the recreation facilities and programs in town. And Clark Chatterton Fund has a similar focus, but we're not involved with how they spend their money. But it's a similar type of idea.
I would have helped you with the route, except I've never done it, so always cooking.
Okay, any questions? Any
Nope.
questions, board? We've had this for a number of years. Okay, do I hear a motion relative to this?
Make a motion, we approve the application for the Cohasset, Thanks for Giving 5K road race, 11/28/2019, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. The setup time is 5:30 a.m.
Second.
First, second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That's unanimous, Tracy? Congratulations, thank you.
Timmy,
Good luck.
she's also
See you
moonlighting on
over
the 250th committee as the parade chairman.
Oh,
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so those of you who want your floats,
Yeah.
talk to Timmy.
Speak now, yeah, okay. All right, next one is South Shore Community Center, the Jingle Bell Walk, 11/29/19. And if you could come on up, please, introduce yourself. And
I'm
you've
Paul
been doing this
Murphy.
one for a few years too. You
I'm
can
Paul
say,
Murphy, I'm the program director at the South Shore Community Center, and we're asking that you approve our 25th Jingle Bell Walk.
wow.
I know, it's amazing. So once again, Santa's gonna come in by boat,
ooh,
Oh, love it.
and the bicycle horses will take him through the streets while the crowds follow. We don't charge anything for that day. Parents can bring their own cameras and they can have photos taken of their children on Santa's lap. We did get permission from the police and as far as the horses going around the common. We will have a detail for that. I do ask that you waive the $250 event fee. And other than that, it's just a great day. It kicks off the holidays and we don't charge anything because this is our way of giving back to the community and thanking everybody for their constant support.
it is a great event every year. It's quite exciting. So, any discussion?
Can we go to the motion?
And
Go ahead.
No, we're good?
Yeah. You're on a roll.
I make a motion we approve the application for South Shore Community Center, the 25th annual, 25, very good, annual Jingle Bell Walk, Friday, November 29th, 2019, from 2 to 4 p.m.
Second.
seconded, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, that's unanimous, Tracy. And thank you very much for doing this, it is, I know.
It's a lot of
We've
work,
enjoyed it
but-
for years.
When you see the kids, the reaction at Government Island, that the hush,
Yeah. Oh.
it's like, they're like, jackpot, I see him.
Exactly, exactly.
Santa, I know him.
We and families have enjoyed that for many years, so good.
Yes,
Aw.
thanks, everybody.
We have one more
I'd like to-
motion
like to
just
make a
on the.
motion to-
Wait, sorry, we'll go.
And make a motion to waive the fee for the event.
Second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous, Tracy. Thank you again.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, the next item is Affordable Housing Steering Committee. We have two appointments, Robert Jeffries and Peter Hobson. Those are the two that we have in right now for this. The whole committee's up, so we could go ahead and appoint these two and then the others as they do it. Would be, I think, a reasonable.
Why is it out of sync? Did we not convene this committee until September? Or?
I think because of the housing trust, we were kinda, that was
Yeah,
kind of,
and
Because they're both reappointments.
excuse me?
Yeah, yeah,
So the
everyone's
whole board
reappointed.
is up as of June 30th, which,
Okay.
yeah,
And we
just the
just
way they were
forgot
appointed.
these?
Yeah,
Okay.
and no, all of them, none of them actually submitted anything,
Okay.
so we have to spur them to remind them.
Okay, so we only have these two, but there's
Yes.
more
More
on the
to-
committee
more to
that we
come.
still
That
want
wants
to
to-
do.
So Rob's the chair and Peter, I think, is a vice, maybe
Yeah.
not the vice chair, but this is the two that are ready, you might as well act on them now.
Yeah, take care of these two, and then the others, when the applications come in, we'll act on them as they do.
Good.
We could send a note maybe to them so that we can get them all at the
I
same time.
talked to, Robert today,
Yeah.
and he's gonna reach out to everybody to make sure they get something out.
Okay, you wanna make a motion on this one?
Sure. Motion to approve both Robert Jeffers and Peter Hobson to the Affordable Housing Steering Committee,
For 1 year.
or is it, yeah, is there a term?
Through June 30th.
Yeah, I think they're only one-year
They're 1 year.
terms, right?
They're one-year terms.
For 1 year terms.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, that's unanimous, Tracy. Good. The next one, Cohasset Cultural Committee, Kelly Cecile.
It's just this is another, just filling a vacancy,
Right.
I mean, this is a reappointment, I believe.
Just for the purpose of the motion, can I just, it's the Cultural Council
Yeah.
It says
it's council,
state.
council,
organized.
Cultural,
Oh.
Yeah.
It's Cohasset Cultural Council,
Yeah,
is their
right.
official name.
that's fine.
Um,
So you can make the motion.
I'll
now.
do that.
Bring it up.
Yeah, I move that we appoint Kelly Basile. I believe this is would be a 3-year
Yeah, I think
appointment,
it's a 3 years.
through June 30th, whatever, 2.5 years from now, to the Cohasset Cultural Council.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That's unanimous, Tracy. On the next one, on the Cohasset Common Historic District, we're gonna defer that to the, and then, wait a second.
You got the
Well,
chairman
No,
right
we
here.
have
We
one.
have,
We do have the chairman here.
I'm the only one that could make it tonight.
Okay.
yeah, so
So-
that was the one I said if we could reappoint John, and
Well,
then the
yeah.
other two, I just got their applications today.
Yeah.
And we're waiting on a couple of more.
Should be three of them, probably,
Mm-hmm.
three others.
So what we're gonna do is let's consider John's, and, the other two, we'll wait till we get them in, that's what it is.
In the terms? Yeah, I don't know, we might wanna interview this one.
I did, the dog's sitting there.
Oh, that's right.
It's like the litmus test.
Saved by the
Right.
dog.
Casey approves.
Is this a 3-year term or 1 year? I
So
think that,
I'm checking
It's
right
more
now.
than
Okay,
one, I
thanks.
think.
Yeah, this is a 3-year as well, and these are the ones that are kinda staggered, so there's only a few of them.
Yeah, because sometimes people have stepped down and we're filling partial.
right,
terms.
I remember that. And then the other two, so the Randy Winery, he was already on, is he?
No, he's new,
No, he's brand
the
new, and Eric
architect.
Wellman
He'll
would be
our
brand new as well.
architect.
He's
And
your
Eric
architect.
Wellman's a
Resident.
resident, and Jane Gertica actually just sent in her application
Great.
today, she's also a resident.
Great.
Good, another former selectman.
So we'll wait till you have the, yes, so we'll we'll go through that process, and we'll bring those forward when they present their
Okay.
application. Okay, so then, John, you are chair, sometimes when we do have chairs here, we like to put them right on the spot. If you have anything you wanna say about your committee, or how things are going, or any questions, or anything you need from us, and we appreciate your
The only thing
service.
I'll say is, we had a pretty busy year, the last year or so, with the new house being built across the way, and hopefully that'll serve as a template for, in the future, if someone else buys a house and finds out that it's falling apart, and needs to do something. So it's been a very active year or so, and then we also had Eric Eisenhower did a lot of work on his house, and we came back multiple times for meetings with him too, so. I do have one question which was just raised to me, and I guess I haven't been active on Cohasset 143, but I understand there's concern about the potential plans for the common and the parking and all that, and I don't think we have any jurisdiction over that. Maybe someone said we do over walkways, but I don't recall that either, so,
You can come in and we can brief you anytime you want.
okay, that's what probably need to do.
In addition, John, this had come up earlier, we're also gonna have on either our next agenda or the following one after that, we're gonna have this topic on there, because
Okay.
there have been some questions, and then we'll have we can answer any other questions, we'll take public input, and, so it'll be covered in another
So it's not a
meeting, too.
done deal at this stage?
There's a grant to
Yeah,
fund the,
right.
it's just here, it's a main common that
Mhm.
well, they're all main commons, right, but the parts that's right across town hall. And it's primarily safety generated, and there's more to it than that. But-
Mhm.
So if you wanna, if you have time in the next couple of days, or even next
Okay.
week, just come by and set
Okay.
something up. Just
We got a
have-
grant for this that I think, and correct me on the number, I think it's $250,000, so, which is good, but we wanna make sure we do it so that the community is accepting of it and understanding of it too.
Yeah, it's all part of the 250th plus.
Yeah.
This is a complete streets grant, which is pedestrian, and bicycle, and traffic safety. So
Okay.
the point is to make it, to slow traffic down and to improve safety and access of the common. That's the goal. So we can talk about that.
Okay, that's great. No,
Okay.
Sounds like a great idea to me.
We need to
Yeah.
do your nomination first,
Oh,
Before you go, we want to.
unless you wanna watch.
yeah.
You,
Well, you know how I got the chairman's position? I
No.
started the meeting by saying, I do not want this job.
that's always the one that gets it.
That's the worst words to say.
Yep.
All right,
I didn't know
do
that
we,
was a strategy.
before he gets out of the room then, let's,
Yeah.
You do need to-
All right, I move that we appoint John Coffey to a 3-year term to the Cohasset Common Historic District Commission.
Second.
any discussion? Debate? We won't. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Tracy, that's unanimous. John,
All
congratulations.
right, thank you very
Lisa.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you guys do. I know you're more active than we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. The next item on the agenda is the amendment to the Home Rule Petition for Prudent Investor Act. It seems like it should say act, but anyway, it's a discussion and a vote on this. And with that, we'll call forth.
I'll have Paula Linares
Paula.
come and join us.
Oh,
You wanna join us
yes.
up front too, Don? You just gonna stay in the audience.
Isn't this like the third,
Okay.
isn't this like the third time we've discussed this?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So,
What is it here, a
Keeps
period at the end of the
going.
sentence?
no, no.
Is
So,
this gonna end it?
so you all have a draft. So we kind of.
Okay, this one.
I am almost taking a lead on this, and so this is a draft, which again, if you all want to wordsmith and tweak, you can. So I'll talk more about the details and some of the substance. Where we are is that the bill is, we had a great public hearing, and then it hit first and second reading, and then it stopped because the Senate Council said, wait a second, we want to make sure we have we want to add the word trust in front of funds. Now, the town's original goal was to use all of our, again, when we think trust funds in a non-mass general law sense, it's really anything that's set aside for a specific purpose. That's not quite how the Division of Local Services of the DOR believes. So, so we ended up with a long conference call with the Senate Council and with someone from DLS, and we had a long conversation. And so what we've come to the point of is that the bottom line is that if the board isn't okay with adding trust, the Senate is probably not going to stop, because there's concern that allowing the town to invest in stabilization and other restricted funds in a prudent investor way would open the floodgates, and it's not conservative best practices.
And so when this is limiting then this to, which trust in particular? Okay, and the idea is that this is limiting this liberalization of the investment policy. Well, I just wanna make it clear to ourselves and the public.
It's more than we have today, but it's less than we want.
Right, so one thing, and Paul, and I know you're gonna do it, is be very clear as to what trust we're talking about, just so the public knows and we know.
That's kind of the crux of the whole thing. We were there talking, and we were saying the word trust as well, but we were needing a broader definition of trust. A lot of treasurers now, because I talked to a couple of treasurers too, I said, what do you mean by trust? And it includes stabilization, it's all kind of invested together. There's different laws that put these, that allow these kinds of monies to be invested in, we call the legal list. But it's not just one law, it's a bunch. So one says specifically trust, and what is meant by a formal trust, excuse me, is like, basically somebody comes in with a check, and they say, here, I want you to invest this money, but don't spend the principal, only spend the interest on this scholarship, on this cemetery, on this park, that kind of thing. That's what they mean by like a formal trust. Usually there's a document to go with it, it's accepted at town meeting and that type. That's a formal trust. Now, it's kind of grown over the years to include things like stabilization, pension reserves, other kinds of money you might get from developers to build sidewalks and that type of thing. And actually, I think you even listed in the annual reports down here, if you look at the trust funds, it's gonna list all those funds. So that's what we're going in thinking. And when they came back and asked for the word trust, at first it didn't think it was a problem, but then we stopped and thought about it, and actually it was one of our investment advisors that brought it to our attention that they may not mean the same thing that we do. So when we pushed back, we sent them off it's like, okay, maybe we could say trust, stabilization, pension reserve, and other like
Right.
funds kind of thing.
Right.
They,
No.
that's
No,
when we
that'd be
went to
too
the
vague,
DLS,
sure.
and they said, no, they wouldn't. At this particular time, the person we talked to was not interested in setting any precedent allowing us to do that. The other laws, with the exception of one, the other special acts that other towns have,
Yeah.
include the word trust somewhere. It's either in the title or in the body. And one town, Brookline, got it through without that, and they contend that that was more of a Scribner's error. And so, I'm not sure they actually even invest stabilization in that type of thing anyhow. So the person we talked to really was not open to having that conversation.
So where we are is the sum and substance of it, we're talking about $1.5 million that could be invested using prudent investor, which is not an insubstantial amount of money, but there's another $8 million in other reserves that cannot be so invested. So 15% of a loaf is better than 0% of a loaf, I guess, and so that's one, it starts us down the right road. What this letter also does here is it makes it clear that while the board's okay, if you choose to be okay with this, that you're okay with this, however, it's not enough and we need to continue to fight for more. So it makes it clear that the so-called legalists, which we've talked about before, I think I referred to it, or we referred to it this way, as we were shackled to the legal list, right? And we mentioned stocks that, the four stocks I mentioned was General Electric, AIG, Bank of America, and Altria. So I challenge any financial investor to put money into those stocks. Maybe Altria's making money, but they invest in Juul and a whole bunch of other stuff that I don't think the town wants to be part of right now. So, again, that's the challenge, is that, when you set down a list, and it's not just equity, you can invest in their bonds, because when you invest in bonds, are usually pretty safe. And it's only those 22 stocks. Well, that's not, who would invest in GE right now? I mean, maybe if you wanna, gamble, but we don't invest for gamble, right? We invest for stability and safety, or Paula invests for stability and safety. Otherwise, she's personally not, so she doesn't want to invest. Yeah, so the letter, again, please give a look, it basically says that you're okay, and again, our recommendation is that you say, okay, grudgingly okay, but this is not the end, because again, 15% of the loaf is better than 0% of the loaf, at least it starts.
So if you could clarify to me, what funds is this gonna affect? Just give me those.
Cemetery, scholarship, and then there's a couple of parks. But things like stabilization, no. Pension reserve, no.
Seems more like a slice of bread than a half a loaf.
Well, it's
not half a loaf, it's
$1.5
small.
million.
Right.
And there's about.
Sounds like a rice cake.
Yeah, well, I mean, $1.5 million is a fair amount. There's $8 million though it doesn't apply to. That's all of our stabilization funds.
So the issue is because the state doesn't really wanna give that kind of liberal investment possibility to the towns and
The
cities.
DLS.
Yeah, that's what the
The
issue
DLS
is.
and the Senate
So they're pushing
Council
back
are
and
pushed
saying, no,
back.
you can't. So we're essentially really getting the ball rolling by getting this amount, but it's not the significance that we thought we were taking a few months ago, is that correct?
Right.
So essentially, us by saying yes to this, we're saying yes to what I've already said yes to, only we're getting less of what we wanted.
Yeah, we're getting what we can.
I mean,
We're
in other words, why
getting-
not say yes?
We're
to
getting what they're
nothing?
willing to give us at the
Yeah,
moment, and
right,
we'll
we're
save
taking-
the rest for another
Right.
battle.
Taking crumbs, no pun intended, because there was a bread reference there.
You take, well, yeah, it's not half a loaf is better than none, right? So I don't think we should give up the fight, and we stressed on the call that the legal list is not an adequate, I mean, it was set up for savings banks.
I think we're saying that in this letter. yeah,
Right,
sure.
exactly, it does say
So
that
I
very
think that's
strongly
fine,
in this
yeah.
letter.
So that's a presidential input, so that we won't go back again.
And Senator O'Connor's office has said that they're not gonna give up this, we wanna continue to work with them. And again, we understand if they wanna set up a more of a structure where maybe only towns that have AAA credit or certain levels can do prudent investing, that's okay. It's that,
As
it
long
was,
as we make the cut.
yeah, so it's a mechanic, right? But it was a bit frustrating, to be very honest with you. I'd say the Senate Council was comparatively neutral. Though they pretty much said pretty strongly that, well, if the DLS feels a certain way, we're not gonna go against them. It's like, okay. So that said, our recommendation grudgingly is that you you support this change, and that we go forward and then keep up the fight to try to make more prudent, and because that's what this is. I mean, 22 limited stocks is.
Yeah, no, that's
Right, with-
ridiculous.
and it's an old list, and who
Right.
knows what the, criteria was when they were
Casey's literally
selected.
underneath your chair.
At that point, I know.
He's
I'll-
literally-
well,
What are you doing,
That's
man?
okay, he's fine.
This comes from the days when, I'm sorry.
Yeah, now, are there any other risks or disadvantages to accepting this now?
Well, the advantage is that we think it'll get through the Senate and House,
Right.
and we'll be one of like 8 towns that have had this granted,
Oh,
which is
that's
good.
all, okay.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. yeah.
The only downside is that we don't get everything we're looking
Right.
for, but we're getting something. So I
We
mean,
get as
the art
much
of
as
politics is the
anyone else
possible.
has.
Right.
Right. Politics is the art of the possible.
Can I just ask 2 questions? So just clarification on when you originally talked about the definition of the word trust. So that the idea where the principal is preserved and only the interest is used, those are the accounts, cemetery, scholarship, things like that.
Those specific.
Those
ones,
are
yeah.
what we mean by trust, and those are the ones
But
that are
some of
gonna
those
be
we use
impacted.
principal too, to be clear. Some of the trust accounts you do use principal. It depends on how they're defined, but they're very specific, dedicated for very, very specific
Okay,
purposes.
and then, is it worth our next step, once this gets through and this is our, situation, is it worth working for a legislative solution as
Yes.
opposed to,
Yeah.
Yes.
an individual community thing? It sounds like,
The Collectors Trust Association does have one, and they've been trying to get it passed, but it is specific to trust funds. So but that's the first one, that's the easiest one, because those are, like, they're permanent, for the most part, they're permanent trust funds, so they're very long-term money.
right,
And So the nothing about the operations is dependent on scholarships or cemeteries. It's just not a big
Right.
hit.
Where
Stabilization is,
stabilization's
you
very
can see it's a little bit more because it's,
Yeah.
if something were, God forbid, to happen, you'd be
That's
looking
your
to
money.
spend stabilization, and it may not be the best time, but,
Right.
that's not 100% equities, and that's an expendable type trust.
Right.
So that's more like 30% equities. So if you get all kinds of different stabilization, you get a big pot, and you're not gonna need to tap all of it, all the pieces all at the same time, See what I'm saying? So that you might tap stabilization, but maybe not capital stabilization, maybe not,
Right.
special education stabilization or some of the others, so.
Remind me what the difference is with the PEB stabilization fund, cause my understanding is that is
That
not
has different rules,
subject
because that has
Right.
different rules.
to the
Separate
22,
law.
yeah,
And we accepted it with the prudent investor,
right.
so that is invested.
So that's probably the model for other investment accounts.
So the
Stabilization
OPEB
accounts.
funds are governed differently, but the pension service not, which is funny, because
Right.
that doesn't fund pensions
Both the same
directly,
thing.
it supports, our, so it's, I don't know.
Man, it sounds like
Yeah.
it's the only way out of this is legislation.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
It
quite
might be
frankly,
another special legislation, but we'll have to see how
Yeah.
it plays, and we'll work with our,
it's been illuminating, not just for us, but I think the legislature, people haven't really
Didn't
talked
pay
about this,
attention.
right?
Right.
My prior community also had a fair amount of money stocked aside before the recession whacked everybody, which was good, it protected us through that. And we looked at some alternatives, and the state of New York had talked about, modernizing some of its ability to do that. And by the way, nobody wants to, we're not gambling and betting on red here,
Right.
This is about being prudent and
diversification.
yeah. When I actually asked about the DLS on the call, I said, well, "Are you going to say that legalist is prudent?" She goes, "Don't talk to me. Talk to the commissioner of banking." I'm like, because they cover the list. I'm like, well, at least you agree that it's probably not the most prudent thing, but it's not yours. It's not your turf, because the law governs us just like savings banks.
Right.
Now, again, savings banks are super safe. We don't. Again, this is not about being investing.
Risky.
It's not being risky.
Right.
It's about being prudent, actually.
Right.
And just untie it from the legal list and then create some other kind. I'm sure that a lot of smart people in Beacon Hill, they could create something that's reasonable. But again, I think Pat O'Connor and I think Joan Moschino have been very interested in this, and I think
They're smart.
they're willing to work with us. And quite frankly, the board, we have a lot of people in town have been very engaged in this too.
Would it help if we as a board had some type of letter drafted or something in support of this to give to our legislatures, or how can we help, help you fight the fight now?
Well, this letter that we're sending, we should send to our representatives.
That's-
This will go to Senator. It'll go to Senate
Okay.
Council, it'll go to Senator O'Connor and Representative Moschino, and you can put anywhere else you want.
Okay.
Because town meeting already approved it, we've already had the public hearing, they know that we're all in on this. So at this point, it's all procedural. So
Okay.
once this goes, by you saying yes to this, I expect it'll go to third reading. It'll get approved by the Senate, go on to the House, and go on to the governor. I do think the next step is to make sure that it moves to the House, doesn't get lost. I think so the next pivot would be to make sure that Representative Moschino is all in, which she has been. So, maybe
Paul's
just
trying to get in here.
Yeah, some of this goes back to what's prudent, and I think the state goes back to, Orange County, California, which went bankrupt, and the California teachers' pension, which also took a big hit when they were basically, I wouldn't say gambling, but they had a lot of real estate investment in their portfolio, which caused a lot of kind of constriction, but we never did that, and that list has been like this for 20 years. So this is a means to expand it without putting the monies of the town at risk, or for that matter, the monies of all the trusts at risk. It's, I think, a good first step, and granted, it's gonna take a little more to push it, because there's a pushback saying, well, Orange County failed, and so did California Teachers Pension Fund, so there's some waxing and waning and where to draw the line. But I think this is the first step towards saying, index funds for anyone who's got a retirement funds, what's wrong with that? Well, this would be a good first step.
Well, thank you. All of you have been very supportive, and town meeting approved this unanimously, so I think it's been a pretty strong statement. Again, I want to thank Paul and Don, Paul for
Thank
all
you.
the work Don's done to support this too, so. And Senator O'Connor and Representative Moschino have been shepherding this through so far, so it's been a good lesson in democracy. It's a lot of work.
So this document we're looking at is the letter,
This is the text of the letter.
the
We're
text
going
of the letter,
official
to
letterhead.
put on letterhead that
And
you
it'll be
want us
signed-
to vote.
Yeah. And again, if you wanna.
Make it your own.
Yeah, if you wanna tweak it, that's fine, if you, or you just give us vote it, we'll have it put on official letterhead, and then I'll have all of you, we can have all of you sign it, I mean, it only has to be Kevin, but it's up to you.
I'm reluctant, just FYI, to wordsmith it here. I think if you're both comfortable with it and we've got the general sense of
Yeah.
it, I don't wanna, I just think we could be here all night, like, honestly, if we're gonna, like,
So how
parse
do we
words.
wanna do this? Just take input and have it on another agenda item then?
Or, no, I was actually gonna suggest, I mean, we could vote it and then have it go, because I don't also,
No, I
I don't
think
wanna
that's
delay it either.
I don't either. I
We
think
don't
this-
all need to sign it.
I don't-
Kevin
No,
can
I
sign
just
it.
have Kevin,
Yeah.
we just.
So
Yep, that's
let's
fine.
do it that way then,
Yep.
let's vote for this if we're gonna vote for it, have a
Yep.
motion on it, and the motion will, and we'll assume you just want me to sign it then, folks?
Yeah.
Yep.
So then Tracy will do it up and I'll come in and sign it, is that the process,
fine.
is that okay? Alright, so wanna do a motion on this?
I move that we approve the letter that we have reviewed, regarding, Senate Bill number 2230 and the prudent investor.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, that's unanimous, Tracy, and we'll follow that process, thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you, Paul.
Follow through.
Thank you.
Do it, man.
I'm not
Chair
moving,
like a-
we're good.
I'm not moving.
We're gonna get run over.
Yeah, heavy. Don't move.
When the meeting's adjourned though, Casey.
He's literally
You
You got
directing.
a gavel, you better
You got
jam
my
it towards
heels
the
in the
door.
snow.
Next
Okay.
item is the town hall project.
Okay, so a couple of updates for all of you and the public at large. So there were 8 strong responses to our RFQ for owner's project manager.
Excellent.
They're being reviewed and scored. So we anticipate the first cut back by next Friday, at which point we'll have them shortlisted to probably the top 3 of the 8, and then go into some meetings. So we'll update.
And you'll select the,
And then there'll be a recommendation for the selection of they'll all be scored after, so this could be
so this will be coming back to us?
no, this is just an
The
information.
committee, yeah. So what is it for the board and for the public's, what is it that's being selected here?
The
What will
owner's
that
project
entity
manager,
do?
the owner's project manager is the owners, which is the town's representative for a project. Any project over $1 million has to have an owner's project manager, and this project, in whatever form it takes, will be over $1 million. And the OPM is there because of their technical expertise. They have to have by state law, basic amount of experience, and we've tailored even more to specific projects involving buildings like, public buildings, like town halls. And they'll come on, and they're there to be our advocate. They're not there to tell us what to do. They're there to work with us to get the project that the town wants. That's their job. And they also bring, bidding
So
expertise.
we had a similar function to this with Cunningham Bridge, right?
Well, it's state.
Did we have our own project?
We had a consultant that was working with the state and
Right.
reviewing it, but it wasn't our project. We've had, the only, there hasn't been a project big enough, actually, we've done to require an OPM, but the prior work was done, we had an OPM.
The prior town hall project, we had Daedalus, Shane.
So, and we've been through this process now, so we know what's going on.
Right, so
And they did not-
it'll be
they
selecting
not-
the
they-
individual, the entity that'll represent the town and through the whole project, bidding, building and so forth.
That's the goal.
And that's, and they're the ones that are gonna be probably fairly regularly meeting and updating the board of selectmen
And the
so
community
that's
as
what's
whole.
being and the selecting body of doing this is gonna be the committee.
It's, and then that's, it's some staff representatives and members of the town building committee are
That's
doing
fine,
this.
So then, when do you anticipate having that?
I'd say by November, hopefully. So we'll have a final selections made hopefully by the end of November.
You know,
So, but the committee's working on things independently too. This is not stopping other work, it's actually being done in parallel with other work, so.
Quick question, is the payment structure for the OPMs similar to my understanding, which is they really don't get paid until the project is?
No, it isn't right,
Okay.
there's
There's certain.
we can negotiate a bit. I don't have the RFP in front of me, but basically you negotiate a fixed fee, and you just build.
Right, and then
pieces.
as
And it's
layers
phases.
of
It's
the
basically,
project.
it's phased, because there's usually at least one, if not more than one, public approval point. In this case, the goal is to have potentially just one town meeting vote, if it's set up the right way. And so the project won't continue, obviously, if the vote's yes, then you go and you finish the contract, if not, then you stop like we did before. But that'll all be public, so.
Thank you. Great.
Okay,
So the second piece I want to update you all on is about records management. So I had mentioned, in fact, on the special town meeting warrant, there's a slot of money for this. So we had a King Information Systems come in, they were selected off state contract, and they had done some work in other places, and they spent time in this building and in the library basement where there's a lot of police records and other records. And the official, and again, this is quoted from the report, some of their official responses refer to our document storage as, quote, a mess, files as, quote, hodgepodge. Not all of them, I mean, she actually praised the records archive in the basement, that people worked on that very specifically. Jackie Dormans are doing a vast amount of that work. So that's actually an excellent save, so we got some nice kudos for that. And we were also told we were far from the worst, which isn't really a good sign.
you have a hodgepodge of a record, but you're far from yours, it's interesting.
The initial investigation estimates that between microfilming and document destruction, there's at least 234 standard-sized boxes of stuff that can be destroyed.
That could be destroyed.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
And
excellent.
that's just,
fire hazard.
and there's stuff that they couldn't get to.
You've seen it.
There's stuff they couldn't get to in some locations that are like locked or buried behind other stuff. There's one, and in one of those is a section of old payroll records that can be microfilmed, and that's considered a document. So you have those set aside somewhere else, and we could save shelf space in the main archive downstairs as well. Now, what they do as part of this is they provided this gets approved from the town meeting. They'll come in, they'll do the review, they'll clean it up, they'll reorganize it, and they'll bring it back. And what they'll do is they'll set up a whole records room for you. Now, depending on where we are with the town hall project, it'll either be here temporarily, or we might just move it off-site somewhere, depending on how we set this all up. The good news is that when they get it done, and they've done this for other communities, you know where everything is, and it's all organized and neat, and you can just build from there. So you don't have to, you can just build off what they've done. They were also giving us a quote on some scanning, so we might be able to do some of that. In fact, there's a possibility of us doing some work in the amount of money that's allocated at town meeting to not only do some of this document management, but also doing some microfilming and getting some records out. So it would be a step towards permanent.
Good.
Permanent. It's been a nice parallel work because we did. I mean, the empty shelves behind me here are a testament to some of that. But imagine 243 bucks. 234 boxes. Sorry.
So where if it's offset, where does it go if it's able to be?
They have record storage, and other people do too. There's companies that do this.
So it's like Iron Mountain.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, Iron Mountain's, my prior government used Iron Mountain as well.
Is that right?
So there's other, they do it, other
Similar.
companies do it.
We'll be using Blue Hill.
Copper Mountain, Lobster Mountain. So
Lobster Mountains.
it's so there's a lot of good. So this has been a very good project. That was one of the things that Town Hall Committee really
Yes,
underscored.
Good.
And again, Ron and his team are also working in parallel to get the whole electronic document management.
These are the kinds of things that are the
Yeah.
spin-off benefits of a big project like the town hall. We get to,
Yeah.
these
Oh,
things
yeah,
get straightened out.
Save space and
Yeah.
time finding stuff.
Yeah.
So those are the two Town Hall updates I have for you.
And that, sorry, that quote was in the vicinity of
Yeah, in fact,
$60,000?
and no, the quote is actually for just a little tiny bit less than 50, but it allows us to have 10, which could allow us to start doing some scanning
Okay.
and microfilming.
Right, this
Which will move us
action
ahead.
at special town meeting.
Right,
on
because
November 4th.
that's encompassed within this, and it's a great move in that direction.
Great.
So, yeah, this is, well, it's not done yet, but this would be another bid that came under and would allow us to do a little bit more. And really, now, the only catch to this is they're so booked, they won't be able to start work till after the new year anyway. Even if this is approved in November, they won't be able to start until after January. Probably sometime late first quarter, so, because we're not the only town in the queue. But,
They've got worse towns working on it right now.
Right.
They gotta get them.
Not the
yeah,
worst.
so, yeah, it was funny, I mean, it was, just looking at the report, and they did a little PowerPoint, I stayed in for part of it, and it was just, it was like Sylvia Lincoln's records, I'm like, is that like Abraham Lincoln's granddaughter? No, it was a woman who used to work here. Right?
Oh.
And she had like a
Shoot.
box of records
Right.
of Sylvia Lincoln's
And he
records.
says Mordecai, let us know
Yeah,
this.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
that's what
Right.
and then there were just random, some of the boxes were just random. It's like, here's some
Yeah.
1950 stuff, and there's some stuff here.
Anything that says things like Constitution or
I know, we've been looking.
Declaration of
That's what
Independence,
I asked.
just call me, I'll take care of it, board.
I did say, hey, did you find the Declaration of Independence that Cohasset got back then? No,
They were giving out copies.
I will say, and not to digress too much, I did meet with our archives over at the library today about the historic map that we have had hanging there.
Yeah.
And he's assessing it for rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of old books we found that aren't, the Magna Carta or anything like that, but they're kind of cool, and he's assessing those too and might get those preserved in some of the
Great.
libraries.
Great.
I'll mention this again, but there is a woman who lived in Cohasset for a long time, just moved out, but she's a very well-known museum level patient conservator, so,
Okay, great.
Good.
let me know.
Well,
She
yeah,
keeps
let me know.
emailing me, she's like, certainly with the 250th, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't procure services, but I'll
Right.
pass
No,
it
no,
along.
I mean, let me have her information.
Yeah, I'll
pass
give you
it
her
on to you.
information,
So,
right, great, thank you.
So that's the update on that.
Okay, good. You got a town manager update?
I do. Procurement training. I know everyone's excited about that. It's tomorrow night. We have at least 4 other communities, I think, that have committed to send people tomorrow, which is exciting. So we have a couple of dozen people at least that are coming.
Right.
It's 3 hours. It's 6.
That's the state attorney general that presented.
It's the Inspector General.
Oh, Inspector.
Inspector General's office. And there's a whole big topic. It's like 3 weeks of training condensed into 3 hours. So if any of you can come, that'd be great. I think we're just gonna try to film it as well. We'll have some snacks. There'll be some snacks out, so you don't have to starve for 3 hours. So
Where is it gonna be
At
at?
Wilkin Commons.
Wilco?
Again,
Is the public still invited to go to that?
yeah,
or
people
is
wanna
it-
come. It's
maybe-
primarily geared to boards and committees, because it's a public officials,
Right.
understanding of the procurement rules. But if people wanna come because they're excited about learning, that's okay.
Do you know if we have any of the key committees being represented? Like
I do know
particularly
they've all been
sewer,
invited.
water?
Everyone, all the specific attention was paid. I think a lot of things. I think a lot of capital folks have signed up.
Good.
Advisory, Selectman, Town Hall Building Committee were the primary
Good,
ones.
good.
But we also invited anyone else, and we partnered with 5 or 6 other local communities
Okay.
and said, hey, if you want to send folks, send it.
Great.
Because if we could host and bring the attorney and the inspector general
Yeah.
down here, it just makes it easier.
Yes.
Because so many of these trainings are,
Right, in towns you've never heard of.
yeah.
Or
And
Right.
you don't want to have to travel through Boston to get through things. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
going to work. And so everyone was within 20 minutes or 25 minutes. So if we can get 25, 30 plus people or more in
In
a training,
general,
that's a great
that's
thing.
great.
So
Very good.
that's tomorrow, and I know there's other things moving. There's lots of ongoing conversations. Just so you know, I have had some meetings with folks from the Harbor Committee about shellfishing in Situate and all that, and our ongoing conversations. And I talked to Kerry last week about it too. So we're having some good conversations. We're meeting on the regional sewer stuff. That's still ongoing. Just so you know, those conversations are ongoing. And we're also having conversation about the whole common parking. Just letting you know those conversations continue. There's been some very creative ideas. I really appreciate the folks who've been partnering and contributing. And we've done a lot of one-on-one meetings, which I think are helpful. Because sometimes you get people in too big a group, people don't feel as comfortable talking when there's somebody who wants to dominate the conversation. So it's been good to do that and then come back with a group and say, thank you for participating and laying things out. So that said, I also appreciate that, and I said this during the meeting with the folks from the churches, and I know it's sacred space in a sense, a public sacred space, civic sacred space. That said, it's been different things over history. You want to
Right.
preserve it as much as possible and keep it open and accessible. And that does mean sometimes, you have to change. But a lot of times, the town historically has kind of let things go a little bit, like the harbor, and you got to kind of bring it back. And it does mean some things will change. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's change. Change is hard. So, but that said, there'll be public conversation about all that. And I will be at the ICMA conference next week, so I will report all back to you when I get back. I hope to be as energized as I was when I had my program in June.
Yeah.
And all of you have Google Chromebooks in front of you tonight.
So
Thanks to Rob
exciting.
Bernard, so please take them home, look at them. If you want to keep them and use them for public purposes, that's what they're here for. There's an instruction sheet, it should all work really well, they're preset, so every time you come into a public building, you should go right up to the
No
Wi-Fi,
way.
no problem.
That's amazing.
That's what Ron's promised, and if you're doing
That's so
access
cute.
for another Wi-Fi site, it should be a secure one.
So
He
exciting.
recommends not using like open public Wi-Fi sites that are not password protected,
Yeah.
just for
Really just
security
for showing
reasons.
up at meetings.
Yeah, and if you're at home, or if you're at work, or you're at some place where there's a dedicated password
Right.
protected site, that's okay. Places that are just wide open, it just, there's just so much stuff flying around, and these are simple, they're Chromebooks, they don't have a lot of memory,
They're great, yeah.
so, but
And
they're great.
we should return our previously,
If you have one
Yes.
of the previous
Yep.
ones, please return
Yep.
that. These are now standard issue, this is what the schools are using,
Love it.
for students. And, they're really very useful tools, they're really not that expensive, and they're pretty
Yeah.
powerful, they're meant to work on the web, that's what they're
Yeah.
designed to do. And since so much of our stuff is now electronic, I know you got access, Paul, to stuff,
I got
which
access.
is very exciting.
Called in.
my emails came right up.
This is so exciting.
So, if you have any questions, we'll set up additional trainings with Ron and his staff, but, this is another step to modernizing the
Good.
operation. So I will eventually, I'm gonna start bringing my laptop out here as well, just so I have access to everything that you do. But I wanted you all to have this before I start doing it.
It's so nice not
Thank
having
you.
all the paper, so.
Yeah, thank you so
I'm the only one who
much.
I get a paper packet, Paul likes a paper packet too, but,
That's
but
all.
I wanna get
I
rid
would
of this,
still feel
I don't wanna, I was talking to some of my colleagues in a meeting, last week, I was over at South Shore VOTEC, and, I got to, meet with the superintendent there, and some of my colleagues who, we all share the VOTEC, and, we're talking about the old days and then literally, that was when I started, where the police would deliver packets to everyone's
Yeah.
home.
No way.
On Friday
Yeah.
Oh,
nights.
yeah. we
No
used to
way.
have-
Yeah,
Friday
literally.
nights.
Yeah.
Police are knocking on your door, it's like, yeah.
Seems like 100 years ago.
First time
And it wasn't, it was
First
fun.
time it happened, I was frightened, I must admit. Like, what has my son done?
So, some towns are still doing that, just to be clear, so, so,
Yep.
so we've come a long way. So any questions of me about anything?
Good.
The only thing, just schedule wise, and you could take it up now, or you could take it up, I'm sorry, it's on your selectman comment time. So, the one thing, that's off tonight, the schools are not able to come tonight, I'm afraid, on the wheelchair capable van, they don't have, Michael's not quite ready yet. I think, so he's asked to postpone that to the 29th. So,
Right.
you have a few more minutes left, even off that, so,
So
So that subject will be covered on the 29th.
that's the plan.
He asked us to defer it because they weren't ready with all the data.
Okay.
Okay?
It's kind of cut a little tight, but, it is what it is, so.
Yeah.
The minute we have it, we'll circulate to everybody. So,
All right, Selectmen, one item we have here, one on the, Chris and I were noticing, we have town meetings on the 4th, our next Board of Selectmen meeting is on the 5th, and then the one after that is on, Tracy, do you have that, I think it's on the 15th?
It's on the 19th.
Excuse me, the 19th. So I get the point being, do we wanna have that meeting on Board of Selectmen meeting? Our next one is gonna be on the 20 of October.
29th.
29th, so then we'll have town meeting on the 4th, and then the next one for sure will be on the 19th. Do we wanna have the one on the 5th is the question, or do you wanna defer it,
put it off to the 12th,
or just put it off?
to the
Oh,
19th.
whatever,
Or just get rid of it.
I mean, do we have anything on the agenda tentatively for the 5th that we need to do? I still
Do we
don't
have
mind
anything,
coming
Tracy,
if
there?
there's
Right
anything.
now, give me 1 second. I just gave you the 29th, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty heavy agenda so far.
I mean, because a lot of things we're dealing with later is often town meeting related, so that's not gonna be
Right.
done.
Right,
The reason it's, by the way, the reason it was the 5th and the 19th is because Thanksgiving is the last week of November, we usually go the 2nd and 4th. And because of that,
we don't wanna meet the
yeah, we don't meet that
26th.
week, and that's our annual employee recognition event, November 26th. So you could tentatively set up, you don't have to, I'm not encouraging you to do more meetings. So you could do the 12th if you want, or just not have another meeting, and if you need to schedule one, you can always have it.
And we have 2 in December for licenses, cause that's
Yeah.
busy. What about, the only thing that's.
And those are early too because of the holidays.
The only thing I see us having to get through, other than some of the normal bigger operational things, is the beach, the beach dump sticker
We're gonna
conversation.
be a night for that, yeah.
That, you think we should do that before the end of calendar year? The
Yes.
only reason I suggest,
Yes.
yeah,
Because it's,
cause we
it's
have an
not-
order and it's in
we
March.
have, one of the December meetings, and you'll experience for the first time, is your license and permits night, and it's just a lot of time, just going through that.
Signing and-
And we have one particular license which we'll have to talk about a little bit more at
Yes.
another time that we're gonna have to talk a little bit more about. So tentatively, an executive session for the next meeting, we'll talk more about that.
About what, the
About the,
issue that,
the Sage Island matter,
Yeah.
the license matter.
yeah, so we'll discuss that in executive session on the 29th. We have
That's
enough
the plan.
time on the agenda for that.
So we're gonna try to set that for a little earlier, maybe at 6:30 if it's
We'll set that
possible.
meeting to begin at 6:30, yeah.
And we talked with Jim, I met with Jim Lemke about that today, so and Jen, so I think we can do that. He's gonna do a memo, so you don't think he can see what's going on. It's complicated, but I think there's a fairly simple path. And then,
So what else, did we have anything?
So, no,
Tracy?
the only thing, no, the 19th I had, Diane, I think you had asked about the all facilities sticker discussion, the rates at
Okay,
that point.
that's
That was on the
okay,
that's right,
19th,
yep.
but I didn't have anything on the 5th yet.
the only thing about the 12th as well is that Veterans Day is the 11th. That is a 3-day weekend for a lot of people.
Yep, so we can just do the 19th.
I mean, again, if you
I'm out of town for the 12th, but I mean, go ahead and.
if you wanna let us, I mean, I.
It sounds like we don't need one.
So let's do
Yeah.
it this way, we either do the 5th, or we just go straight to the 19th. So,
You
we
can always
could
leave it,
decide,
just cancel,
they what?
you can always leave it, just
We
cancel.
can, we'll look at this again on the 29th.
Cause I mean, if it's a 2-day town meeting, it'll be the next night.
Oh.
I'm not
yeah.
saying that it'll be a
Oh.
2-day town
Six
meeting.
articles.
On 4 generally.
I'm just saying.
So why don't we do this, is, Tracy, could you put this back on the agenda on the 29th? We'll revisit the subject on the 29th.
Okay.
No sense in talking this.
And then we won't post anything for that night unless it has to be right now. I mean, if there's an event that
Well,
has
you won't have posted it by October.
No, my point is that if somebody needs unless there's something that's
Like 1-day liquor license.
time sensitive.
Yeah, move to another meeting.
Right,
Right.
because we're always looking at the calendar down the road about that kind of stuff, so. All right,
Okay, it covers that subject. Also too, I thought that, did we set up, I think we should be good on January to set up, I don't know whether we set that meeting or not, but I'd like to set it if we haven't, where we go over the goals, go over to Wilcox Center.
Yeah. Are you doing-
A casual meeting, the only thing really, the only agenda item being that Chris and team or whoever will come in and give us an update on where we stand on the goals.
Sure.
Have a conversation, make any tweaks or adjustments, and I think that's good,
Yeah.
it's definitely good practice, and it also is it shows all the people that are working hard on these goals that we take it
Yeah.
seriously, blah, blah, blah. So, if that's generally agreed on, what would be a good night to do that on? Did we set that already, Tracy, I guess?
I'm looking right now.
What
I'm
do we have in
looking, so
January?
you're saying January, right?
I'd say January, we do
So
this
So we
on.
have
I
two
don't know.
regular meetings set that month.
Yeah, the
Um,
14th and the 28th.
So you can do maybe the 21st.
This is like a 2-hour
Yeah.
meeting of,
So if you want to stick with Tuesdays.
I would say 21st.
21st, okay?
Yeah.
When is Martin Luther King Day? I don't remember.
The 20th.
Okay, so okay, if you want to do the
21st?
21st.
21st works.
Okay.
21st, okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay, so put
So,
that in our
January 21st,
schedule,
add
and
it.
that'll be like a special, but it'll only be, so it won't, it'll be an hour and a half or two, and I think we should purposely be casual and so that we can have a we can talk casually amongst ourselves too, that's a good way for us to work, I think.
It's right about the budget, I mean, you'll have a lot of the budget book-ish, or you'll know which direction we're going in for FY
Yeah,
'21.
I think we're presenting on the 28th. I think that's the plan.
So, like, of course, with the goals, they each have some budget
Yeah.
implications, so
That's
Sure.
it's
true,
a
yeah,
good
right,
time
well,
to do
right,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, good.
okay, so that's
So
that
that's
there.
that, yeah.
On meetings, we were gonna have a meeting, get back and forth, on the harbor plan and the zoning thing. So the zoning thing got canceled, as we all know, but we still made the commitment, to meet on the harbor plan, to have representatives come in. We discussed that already, and you've seen the agenda, and go over the rule, regulation 91 implications, and listen to the public if they wish to, and just an educational further thing,
Yep.
and so forth. Okay, so I got scheduled, in order to have all the parties that need to be there, I think we were tentatively looking at November 18th.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's another reason not to have another meeting on the,
Right. Take a week off and
Yeah.
have 2 meetings that week.
Yeah.
So
but it hasn't been set though yet, has it?
that's the tentative where that's the date we're holding right now. So unless
So
there's
just
an objection, we
For your
would
own
like to-
calendars, that looks like that meeting will be,
And
on
we
the
will
18th.
post that as a selectmen's meeting, just so you can have
Yeah, it'll be a second
discussions.
meeting, and then it'll be done, I think that agenda was already out, so you've
Yeah.
seen it. It'll essentially be, I'll moderate it, and it'll be this presentation of
I mean, you could expand it if you want, because there's nothing else on that night. If you wanted to have some harbor plan conversations in addition to chapter 91, we can maybe broaden the topic.
That'd be fine, I wouldn't
Alright.
object to that.
Because that might allow us to move a little bit further.
So, why don't, when you and I, who's setting up that agenda, Lauren, or you?
Yeah, I'll have
Okay,
her-
just send it to me how you
Yeah.
wanna revise it, and, yeah, if we can expand that, okay, folks?
Yeah.
The more we get the word out on this, the better, I
Do we have
think.
a time, tentative time for that?
I think we're gonna do it, start a little more traditionally,
7?
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
Seven,
what
okay.
seven.
Yeah.
I think it's
So it'd be
just-
like
I'm
a
from Boston, so
It'd
seven.
be like a
Chapter
7 to 9
91,
thing.
yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so those two things.
And I know it's far away, Kevin, just talking
No
about
problem.
meetings. MMA is in January, if you all got your beacon.
It's the end of the
Yep.
21st week.
Yeah, so just, if you're interested in going, we're already starting to register people for it. And there's some events that fill up fast, like the WeMo lunch. So
Yeah.
if you wanna go to any of those things, I know I mentioned that to you, Carrie, last time. So,
What weekend is that?
It's Friday, the 22nd and the 23rd September, January.
I must be in the wrong year, yes.
2020.
2020.
Oh, God, I'm looking at the wrong thing too. I'm in 2021. Oh, sorry.
You're living in the past.
Gosh, I'm so sorry. So it's Friday the 24th and Saturday the 25th.
Okay, so, for those, if you wanna, it's a great thing to go to when you get,
Yeah.
especially if you're relatively, so just let Tracy know and she'll make your reservations and stuff, is what I'm saying.
great.
So just let her know directly, and that's the, we're on the 24th and 25th, okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you for reminding us of that, that's always a good conference,
Mm-hmm.
as long as it's not Super Bowl weekend.
No, that's
Is it?
right. Never. Never.
All right, gang,
I have enough pull.
anything else?
Just selectmen comments you wanna
Yes.
go through?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just two quick things out. You probably saw Steve Garmer give us a thumbs up that he was just representing the Affordable Housing Trust in front of advisory, so they voted unanimously to recommend
fabulous.
the transfer of the trust fund, so I just wanted to explain why he was doing the thumbs up. So that's good, and, I guess we'll be able to vote on that whenever. Or,
I guess you
I
can
think
do it
it's
on the
queued up for the
29th, I guess.
29th, yep.
We'll do that for the
And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, and it kind of is a nice, you bringing up goals and objectives and reviewing that, one of the goals from last year was the electrical grid, and I'd love to have an update on that, because I am actually very fortunate and able to work from home a couple days a week, which has been a wonderful gift. But I was working
You
from
need
home the other
electricity?
day, and my electricity went out, and I
On
had,
Friday?
and that was on Friday, and
Same.
then I guess all of or a lot of North Cohasset lost it for
Hull too.
4 hours
Yeah.
21
in Hull.
Yeah.
How long were you out?
I was out for, I actually don't know, other than my clocks, I think I was out a little over an hour, because I left and went to Starbucks, so I would
Yeah,
have
that's where you go to shop.
Have a
Outside the
signal.
road was like 3,
Right.
4 hours.
And
Yeah.
and I say this all the time, it's a real problem for my neighborhood when we lose our electricity, because we do not have cell service.
Yeah.
So for me, I get in my car and I can go to Starbucks, but for somebody that's
Yeah.
elderly and doesn't have a generator, it really is an
Okay.
issue, so I would
No, I'm
love to
glad you
get.
brought this up, so
Yeah.
let's discuss, what's the best meeting for this, and let's have a substantive review on this. So what would be best, Chris, do you think?
We can talk about this in November. We want to do it on
Yeah.
November, December.
Let's do it in November before,
Yeah, before the snow hits.
yeah.
As I remember, we got far last year, and I guess the big thing is always we got lucky last winter, it wasn't a crazy winter, but again, it would be really good to have sort of a plan, should
Well,
we have outages
I
throughout.
will tell you that I was in touch with Chief Sylvia during all of that, and National Grid had pre-positioned vehicles because of, they knew the storm was coming.
That I did
that's
say,
great.
yeah, right.
So they
Actually
were
amazing,
on
yeah.
site, so
Yep.
they were working. In
Yep.
fact, I think you can see your power came back and then went back out again.
Right.
That's right, it was your
And then I was coming to meeting with him, so I, it was.
So
Yeah, but you're
I will
reminded.
say that in this case, this was the wind had picked up. It was a nor'easter, and
Yeah.
Yep.
and when the wind hits certain points, they can't get up in the bucket trucks, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
that said, we want to know that they're continuing to do the work they said they were going to do.
Right.
So I think we had some objectives that they were gonna do, so could you prepare that, so I don't wanna just have let's get together and see what we, off the spur of the moment here, let's really go over what's been going on and what we need to do to pursue that, okay?
Yep.
Wanna make sure that stays on track, and whoever we need to have at the meeting, whether it's the chief or whoever, and, good.
Great, and I just wanna send good vibes out to the chairman of the CPC committee, who's battling a health issue, so
Okay.
that's it.
Okay, Paul.
Along the lines of the electric grid, we're actually getting a battery storage system put in the house, which, after it's up and running, I'll let you know how things work.
Oh,
Which
nice.
is one of the things which is looking at from the microgrid, to be able to seal off certain areas of the town and have a battery backup, either wind or battery or combination for
So
storage.
where's that being done at?
My house.
You're just doing it for your house?
Yeah, yeah, so I'll let you
We're
know.
all invited when you
Yeah.
lose your electricity.
You're within
It's gonna
walking
be-
distance of my house, so yeah, I can.
Yeah. So I'll let you know, it'll probably go in, I'm trying to get in before the,
Huh.
before the.
Please do,
winter.
yeah.
Yeah.
I use chamomile tea at meetings.
Nantucket just did that. Did you see also
And so we've had conversations about the state's pilot, if you will, we just haven't been in.
I would really like to see something like that, I'll tell you, you know, we saw this thing in California, and I watched the governor's talk on this, and he had to, there's a new governor, but he had to go in there, he explained that essentially, and I won't make a long story short, but the shortages that they've mandated out there, they're turning off the electricity, as we probably all know, to millions, is specifically, it is because over the years, the gas and electric company didn't make the investments, they didn't, it was, he talked about how much money went off to shareholders and so forth. He said there's no resiliency plan, it was just really, really neglect. And neglect also on the part of the governance in California for not keeping on them. So my purpose in saying this is, we do need to keep on them to make sure that we get investment in this. And microgrid was something that the governor had brought up, and I know what Paul's doing, is one of the solutions to do this. And when Chris and I met with the National Grid people, they said that that's something that's possible, so we really should do that.
And, you know, it came up with the cell tower last winter, and the cell tower didn't have the fuel to run the generator, to run the cell tower, to run the cell availability for EMS.
I will say on an infrastructure, just piggyback on what you're saying, so our staff went out with Horizon, which is the company that's gonna be installing we have a grant to do 4 new charging stations. It looks like we're gonna be able to put 2 in the village parking lot, so we'll have 4 units in the village parking lot. One at, on the backside of Library and Rec, and one at the schools, and we may actually be able to get a 5th. Oh, we're just not sure where we'll go at this point, so, there's been a big push for those, so.
Can you put one in like Woken Commons? I mean, that'd be.
The problem with
You
Woken
just
Commons
roll
is,
down?
the problem with Woken Commons, we don't own the parking lot, it's owned by the swim trust.
Oh, I see.
So we've talked with them, so,
Well, I would think they have a
Yeah.
pretty good mood towards us, based on the last time.
no, we've had a good relation, it's just,
You know,
Yeah.
so we
Pretty
are
good.
gonna pick up a conversation with them
Yeah.
again to see if they're interested. We have a staff member going to a National Grid conference down at Foxborough, where we're supposed to be getting a free charging station out of it, plus a $10,000 bonus amount of money, which I think will help with our green community stuff, so.
Great.
But we're seeing how that all works, so. I will say that they've been responsive in keeping us engaged, and that said, there's clearly long-term issues, and we don't wanna be California.
no,
Yeah.
don't.
Right.
Yeah, no, I just wanna stay on top of it,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm done.
Carrie.
Okay, I had a great meeting with Chris on Friday. We talked about several exciting things. I've gotten approached by several fishermen, people interested in the oyster situation happening between us and Situate in ways that we can all benefit from it. So I just wanna say that is something that I know we're all working on and talking to our neighbors in Situate about, and thanks to Chris for continually having those meetings. Another interesting thing that he brought up that I just wanted to throw out to the board just cause it sounded fun is apparently as a town, we're supposed to be doing yearly walkthroughs of our town boundaries that we've never done.
Perambulation.
Yeah, it does sound kind of fun and I'm interested in it, so if anyone wants to get in on that, I think it could be a fun idea.
This has come up in the past, and
Yeah.
we haven't done it, so could you, what I like to do is, because
Sounds
this,
fun.
this continues to not happen, no, I've actually
Yeah,
brought, I brought it up my
I'm
first year too.
intrigued by it.
No, I did. So could you do like we did the sailing thing, could you set up where Brian or whoever, just give a date, and next few weeks, so it isn't too cold, and set it as a date, and then we'll have to post it as a, do we post that as a visit, as a site visit or something?
Yeah,
But
there
just-
are, the reality is a lot of our boundaries are kind of in the woods.
Right.
So, we don't wanna be too cold, but it might be better to be out of mosquito season, we might wanna wait for a hard frost and then get the ticks a little bit more.
That's fine, as long as you,
But we don't have to do it in January.
before Thanksgiving.
Right, yeah, so let's see if we can't set up a time in November when it's a little quieter,
Yep,
and,
so you do that
yeah,
then?
we're gonna, and we are, yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think
Yeah.
Wampatuck Park may be one of the best places to do it, cause
Yeah.
that's where our big chunk of our boundary is.
Good.
You know, this would be a good little thing to involve, if we can, the Cohasset 250 on, cause it's just sort of a
Yeah.
defining
Right.
thing about Cohasset,
That's true.
and just for old time's sake, if you could put Fred Coed on the distribution list for that, because Fred would talk about it
Oh, really?
all the time, and we just never got to it in his days on the board.
There was a lot of days too.
Well, there was a lot, but in terms of the time that I overlapped with him anyway.
So good, let's
It
do
goes
it.
back to the, you know, the colonial era and even the Old English.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Where adverse possession, where some town or some person would
right.
build on the,
Right.
It
on the
would,
line and no one knew.
It's
and
interesting, it's kind of fun.
oh, it happens
Pretty
all the
soon
time, yeah.
Situate is Cohasset, or Cohasset is Situate. and-
Yeah. Check out the harbor.
So,
The perambulation.
yeah, so, and the southern border is the old colony line that was set about 400 years ago. That said, you know,
We'll take a peek
Yeah.
with our muskets.
so let me see if we can find some
Yeah.
areas that we're not gonna walk the entire, you know,
Right.
30
We'll
miles.
just do it in December.
But,
No, we're not gonna, yeah.
That's an aggressive
Yeah.
workout, but
So-
maybe just,
Whatever.
we'll take some sections that I think will be, let me find some sections that are
If you would.
comparatively easy to walk. But interesting.
have you done it before either?
I have not done it
Okay,
before.
so
I've
you
read
might,
about it.
you'd
No,
be
we're supposed to
into,
do it
alright,
each year.
alright,
Right.
okay,
Well,
This has
maybe
come
it's
up
TV
before.
clips.
We've never
Yeah,
done it,
yeah.
so this year we'll do it.
okay.
Were we also going to have Laurie give us a view of Briggs Harbor area? Did we discuss that? Has that been, weren't we gonna do that? I thought we
Tour
were.
of the harbor.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Relative to the whole,
just so that as this subject is come up, I think as selectmen, we really need to be familiar with the dimensions of what's being talked
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
In fact, I think that's fairly important we do that. with-
While the boat's still in the water, yeah.
So those
Shallow
two
grass.
things,
Yeah, got it.
okay?
And we'll just pick a couple dates, and if you can come, you can come.
Yeah, pick
Because it
them,
needs to be done at the right
it's
time of day,
organized.
because we
Right.
can't get the boat in there,
Yeah,
yep.
so, okay.
okay, good. All right, with no more selectmen's comments, the next item on the agenda, we're gonna do on the 29th. The next item we have is the approval of the meeting minutes for 9/24/19 and 10/1/19.
I move that we approve the minutes of September 24th and October 1st, 2019.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those approved, say aye.
Aye.
Nay, that's unanimous, Tracy. So, I have a feeling, cause I wanna respect the fact Sam, you probably came for that item that was, did you come for the item that was canceled? Yes. I'm not sure.
We learned about that very late.
I was just gonna
Apologies.
tell you that we were waiting for them to, the schools and the cost benefit.
Okay, so they're
I
gonna,
know it's in progress, but
Yeah.
it's not ready.
it's not ready, and that they've committed to be, the 29th for us to have it, just so you know.
We hope.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that we have to have
We're
it,
also
we can't
waiting
vote
for
on it, right?
information
So-
on the harbor lift system, which may or may not make it.
Right, I don't think that, if, we need to get a thorough answer, not a,
Right.
yeah.
But, correct
Wait,
me if I'm
there's
wrong, we're
money
not
for
gonna,
engineering.
right, there's money for engineering, so we're not really gonna have an answer for the capital expense until we do the engineering.
Right, except that the board has voted to recommend the town meeting approve it, and the process that I laid out would be that after we get an analysis, we'll go back to capital and say,
That's right.
what's your comment, and then we'll come back to eventually the board of selectmen to say yes or no.
Yeah.
And the reason why we did that is apparently, well, I've seen it visually, but we were motivated by the fact it's a safety issue, a health and safety issue, and,
If it's
that's why
possible,
we're
look at
moving that way on that, that's why we put it on the article that way. We know that may be somewhat a little out of cycle, but on an issue that's that significant, we wanna give it, but that's all gonna go back before capital advisory, before it gets done anyways. It is a little tweaky, I understand, but it's, the reason what motivated us in our discussion is the safety and health issue of and it's an area that's been neglected probably for decades in this town, so, compared to our whole budget, so that's kind of, and we can talk more about that on the 29th, okay?
Do we have the current warrant, or is it,
It's,
Still at the
At
printer?
the printer.
Great.
It'll be back here on the 17th.
The next
Like
time we
printed.
see it, there'll be,
2 more days
Right.
after
I
the
mean, you
weekend.
should be in your memo.
By the weekend, yeah.
okay. Approving this, topics not reasonably anticipated by the chairperson for 48 hours in advance. None.
Wow.
I know, I'm sorry, I did my best reasonable, and on the anticipatory aspect of that, I came up. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's unanimous, Tracy, this
My
meeting is
shortest
adjourned.
meeting so far, I don't